What's up, guys? Theo here doing a prediction for Bolaji Oki versus Timmy Cuamba. So right now, Bolaji Oki is a minus 185 favorite on DraftKings, and the comeback on Timmy Cuamba is plus 145. And guys, I like Bolaji Oki here. The thing that kind of is making me pick Bolaji here is the incredibly impressive performance he had on Contender Series, man, where he went forward and just looked really, really great on the feet. He looked like he had really great MMA striking and timing for MMA against someone that was a highly touted prospect in Dylan Salvador. During the commentary for this fight in Contender Series when it happened, they kind of alluded to the fact that Dylan Salvador, he was like a really good striker. And I believe they said something about how the UFC brass, like the matchmakers, they had known about him for like a long time and they had like kept an eye on him. I don't think they stated it that explicitly, but I believe, if I remember correctly, there was some kind of reference by the commentary team where they said, like, this is someone the UFC has been aware of and they've been wanting to bring him into the UFC. They don't usually say things like that or let people in on stuff like that. They kind of keep business behind closed doors. So I was surprised when that came to my attention. But when he went in there, man, Salvatore just fell apart completely against Bolaji. Man. He just wasn't able to put anything together on the feet. He was one step behind. But Bolaji Oki was the underdog in that fight, if I remember correctly. And it's funny, when Bolaji Oki finished him, the camera cut to Dana White, and Dana White was sitting there looking at his paper going, wow. Like, you could tell Dana White was expecting the other guy to win. I could tell when I was watching that Dana White thought that Dylan Salvador was going to knock him out. And it couldn't be further from the truth, man. Bolaji Oki looked amazing when he went in there and just was physical and raw and powerful and just brought a level of energy that I really liked when I saw it. And I had picked against him in that fight. And guys, I have a thing where I love fighters that prove me wrong. Sometimes I don't. Guys like Themba Gorimbo, who proved me wrong last week. If it's someone who like that, who I genuinely don't think is skilled and they prove me wrong, then I'm just like, whatever, I'll bet against them again. But if it's someone like Bolaji Oki, where I did my tape study for him, I did everything on him, I looked at everything about his opponent, and I ended up coming to the conclusion that the other guy would win. And I felt strongly about it, and the line supported that. And then he proves me wrong and looks amazing like that. I absolutely love betting on fighters that prove me wrong that way. And usually it's successful when I do. It's not often that when I try to fade these guys again, I win. I usually lose. So I take that as a sign. If someone proves me wrong, that I should usually bet on them the next time. Even if that hadn't been the case, even if I had thought Bolaji Oki was going to win initially, and he did, I still would be picking him here against his opponent because I kind of felt the opposite about Timmy Cuamba. You know, when I was watching his tape initially for his fight against Matteo Vogel, I really did not expect him to win. I wasn't very impressed at what I saw, and Matteo Vogel had looked very good and very physical on the regional scene in Canada. And Cuamba, I remember someone else that I follow picked him to win that fight. And I remember thinking to myself, no way, this guy's not going to win this. And so he goes in, fights Matteo Vogel. And, you know, he fights a very smart, cerebral fight, right? He's very risk averse and a lot of movement on the feet. He kind of, actually, funny enough, reminds me a little bit of Jack Hermansson, but like smaller, you know? The way he fights, the way he bounces, the way he moves and whatnot. He's got good lateral movement. But I really still, to this day, when I watch that fight back, I think Matteo Vogel won that fight. I don't think Timmy Cuamba should have gotten that decision. I don't know how he did because, you know, Vogel threw everything in the kitchen sink at this guy. He was throwing spinning kicks, crazy combinations. He had him mounted. He had him in submissions several times throughout the fight. I mean, Matteo Vogel was just putting so much on him. And to Cuamba's credit, and this is the reason I think he probably got the decision, he did manage to neutralize all of Matteo Vogel's offense, and eventually his cardio lasted longer than Vogel's. And judges, in my experience, they favor that very, very highly. When you can show that you have better cardio than the other guy, and you can neutralize what they do, especially if they're doing multiple things, if they're trying to get you in submissions, hit you, do all of these things, and you can neutralize that and show that it doesn't affect you, the judges almost see that as a win. I've seen it happen time and time again in the UFC where the other guy does more work and does more damage and is trying more, and the person that kind of seems like they're just not getting beat up by it and not getting stopped by it, the judges almost see that as them winning. Even though that's maybe not traditionally how a fan would think of it, they would think of the guy that's doing work and going forward and putting stuff on him, he should win. The judges don't really see it that way because they are looking more for damage, and if they see a ton of output by one fighter and that output is not damaging his opponent, they favor that. They favor the ability for the fighter with a lower output to neutralize and to basically stop those attacks. And that is exactly what Cuamba did in that fight. Just nothing worked on him, even though he himself didn't do much other than he landed a few slick jabs and like combinations and whatnot on Vogel, but it didn't really ever slow Vogel down and stop him from coming forward and trying to finish the fight. So I was surprised when he won that decision, but I kind of understand why the judges gave it to Cuamba, even though I don't really agree with that method of scoring, and I don't agree that he won that fight. And, you know, I do kind of have a weird feeling that Cuamba is going to be one of those dudes that, like, just does the opposite of whatever I do when I bet. Like, if I bet on him, I have a feeling he'll lose. If I bet against him, I have a feeling he'll win. But I can't pick against Bolaji Oki here after what I saw in Contender Series. I mean, the dude just did every single thing you want to see. And I favor that, especially here against Cuamba, because what that fight with Matteo Vogel told me was that to get Timmy Cuamba out of there, you're going to have to physically break him. He is not going to go away if you get him in a submission, a guillotine, and you're teeing off on him. If he gets away, you know, if you're not able to drop him, hurt him, crack him, bully him, then he's not going to go away, and you're going to lose the fight. But I think that someone like Bolaji Oki is the answer to someone like Cuamba. I think you need a guy that is just physical and powerful and isn't afraid, doesn't give a fuck. And I kind of get that vibe from Bolaji Oki. I feel like this dude likes to fight, wants to fight, and I feel like he's cut out for fighting. And I don't necessarily get that vibe from Cuamba. I feel like the fact that he is very cerebral and technical and risk-averse, I feel like that's a bad sign when you're going up against a dude like this who's hungry and powerful and young. And he's got the physicality on his side here, man. And I think he's going to want to finish this fight. And I think Cuamba will probably weather the storm well at first. But I do think that Bolaji is going to be able to finish him. And even if Bolaji does not finish him, I think that Bolaji can win a decision based on damage. Because the way that Bolaji strikes and his power, I have a feeling that this dude does a lot of damage. I have a feeling that he's that type of fighter. You know, the way that Dylan Salvador was reacting to a lot of his hits, it looked like he was not having a good time at all. It looks like this dude hits real hard, so real fast, and he's got great timing, and it wasn't just like aggressive, no thought rush forward. I mean, everything was calculated. I really liked what I saw on the feet from Bolaji Oki. So I've got a good feeling about him here. Give me Bolaji Oki, guys. Keep it tuned in. More picks coming later this week.